The opinions expressed in the Shutter Sports podcast are individual and not necessarily representative of Spirit Live or Toronto Metropolitan University. Thank you for listening. And as always, whether you agree or disagree, we invite you to join the discussion on Instagram at Shutter Sports Media or Twitter at ShutterSportsN. Welcome to the Shutter Sports podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today I'm joined by
Dylan Baker.
On today's episode, we are going to be talking about our work in the sports industry as students, how we got our start, and other experiences in the sports industry.
From the little leagues
to the pros.
This is your weekly sports show.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast.
Take a seat at the table as we discuss.
Let's start off with you, Dylan. How did you get your start in the sports industry? Tell us a bit about what you do.
First off, thanks for having me, Katie. I'm excited to be on the podcast today. I got my start when I was 13 years old doing independent league baseball broadcast, the Intercounty Baseball League, which is a semi-pro league in Ontario, mostly Southern Ontario. They used to have a team in Ottawa, but no longer. So I was brought in after I applied for a color commentator role with the Majors, the London Majors, the team in London, Ontario, where I'm from. And I had a podcast that I had started with my dad when I was 12 years old. That gave me kind of my foundation. I sent them my podcast in April of that year. They brought me on that season, and I've been with them ever since. Later that year, in August, I was able to get started with the Kamoka Kings Junior B team. So I was able to do some hockey as well, and I've kind of built off of that foundation into some other roles and different sports I've gone along.
Wow, a young prodigy.
I wouldn't say a young prodigy, but I've had the chance to do some games, and I'm pretty fortunate for that experience. How did you get started, Katie?
Oh, well, that's a funny story. I always had, my mom has, this Canon camera. I do more photography and, media-based stuff. My mom had this Canon camera that I would take to my brother's sports games. He plays, basketball, baseball, hockey, and I just, take photos randomly. He'd have them. For a while, it was before he even had Instagram, so it would be, just for fun. Kind of creepy, just there with the camera. No, photos aren't going anywhere, but whatever. And then later, obviously, I'd take them, send them to the team. They would post them on their social media. They'd all get excited. That's my favorite thing about photography is everyone gets so excited when you take photos
Everybody
of them.
loves a picture of themselves.
Everybody loves a good photo of themselves. And so I was doing that. They were posting them, whatever. And then I was like, okay, if I'm going to keep taking photos, I might as well have somewhere to post them myself, kind of like a portfolio. But I started a little Instagram account. But the thing is, me and my brother are so close in age, and there were people my age playing in that league. And I was like, hey, I don't want to just post pictures under my name of all these people that I go to school with, or they're younger than me or they're my age. I'm like, this just, not creepy, but I didn't want my name attached to it in any way. So I was like, hey, what little photography handle can I make? Texted my friends, I landed on Shutter Sports Media. And so I made a little Instagram account with that handle, started posting pictures, did a little video, posted some reels. And because everyone loves photos of themselves, photos of their friends, videos, highlight reels of people they know, gained a few followers. And it was good timing. It was right when the playoffs started. So it was big games, big moments, big sellies. And I got some good videos. Now that I look back on them, not good videos, not a good camera. Got a new camera for my birthday a week into the playoffs. This all happened so fast. I was like, you know what? I need a better camera if I'm going to keep doing this. And it was a month, maybe a few weeks into starting it. And I was like, oh, so I guess this is where I'm going with investing in it already, getting a camera and stuff. And then got another camera recently, which was great. And so we've just kind of been upgrading slowly, getting more followers, posting different kinds of content, starting podcast, obviously. I've always been into journalism, so we started a newsletter. And I'm just kind of dipping my toe in all the media, I guess, and using this company that I randomly started to kind of make a platform for all that stuff.
So I got two questions for you, because photography is a pretty expensive thing to do, right?
It is.
The cameras are super expensive, the different lenses are super expensive.
Yeah.
So at what point did you know, okay, I want to do this and I'm going to invest in this?
Yeah, it was good that I could get started with my mom's camera. There was some Costco Canon kit that she got that came with a zoom lens and a regular lens, and I just used that zoom lens. But very quickly I realized, oh, my photos aren't as good as everyone else's. I need a better camera. And it was more at that point, the video wasn't as good because it was a mostly photography camera. I was shooting with for anyone who cares, Canon Rebel T5, I think. And that's it's a good starter camera. People DM me all the time. They're like, what do you recommend? I'm like, if you're just getting started, it's cheap. Buy it on Marketplace. Good camera. And then luckily it was my birthday coming up. Again, Facebook Marketplace. I upgraded to a Canon SL2, which was better for video, about the same for photo. And then recently just after Christmas, with a little bit of Christmas money that I had, I bought a Canon 90D, which is like a massive step up, which photography is kind of like, if you can buy the equipment, you're going to be better. Like, and then if you have the good equipment, pray and spray and you'll get some good shots. There is obviously, that's a saying, just like hold down on the shutter, take as many photos as you can. You know what I'm saying?
Now I'm following.
Yeah. So there is like a certain, you do kind of have to buy into it, but there is obviously talent involved.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I guess, like I said, it was kind of really quick. Like, as soon as I started getting followers, I was like, I'm also very critical of my own work. So I was like, hey, I need a better camera. Like, other people are way better than me, and like, this just doesn't look good. And so I realized like I had a bit of a knack for like getting the video, making the reels. And so I was like, hey, I might as well upgrade to a better video camera. But yeah, it is an investment for sure. And I'm to the point where like I've worked a few tournaments. I work like specific tournaments for hockey, sports, whatever. They pay me to be there. And so when you're getting paid, you obviously can justify buying a better camera. And it's a bit of an investment that way. So hopefully it leads to more jobs having a better camera. But yeah.
So you've also branched out in media, right? Like obviously this podcast that you're listening to right now is under the Shutter Sports Media umbrella, excuse me. So what motivated you to do that? Like why didn't you just want to stay in photography? Because a lot of people are photographers, right? And they're very good photographers, but they stay in photography. You became a good photographer and then also added a podcast to it, added a newsletter, like you said. Why was that so important to you?
Yeah, the newsletter was really important to me. When I was in high school, I like started a newsletter. I've always liked writing, and for a while, like I thought I just wanted to be a sports journalist. Like I was like, oh, writing articles is really what I like to do. Like English was my favorite class. I don't know if that's a controversial statement.
Almost an English major, so I hear.
Almost an English major. I was like, oh, I want to go into journalism. Like I'll be an English major. And like I was working part-time at Staples. This random manager who was like about to leave, like he was like, if I have one piece of life advice for you, don't be an English major. Do something more specific. And I guess I took that.
Was the manager an English major? Was this
yeah, I think he was.
Major?
I think he was. And he was working at Staples, so.
You had some opinions on an English major.
Yeah,
then. Okay.
and so I guess I took that to heart, and I was like, okay, we'll do something more specific. And then for a while, I wanted to go into media studies at UBC. That was a goal of mine, and I was like, oh, I'll do that and then go into sports journalism. And then I found out about the Toronto Metropolitan Sport Media Program. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that. And then slowly I got more into photography, more into like video, editing, media, and I was like, okay, we can branch out journalism to a few more different things. But I have always really enjoyed writing articles, so it was something I write articles for fun, and I was like, might as well also post those somewhere. And I got a few other people who go to school with us at TMU to join in, and so I also I reached it out, on the website it says like submit an article, whatever. I just wanted it to be like a community page, where everyone can kind of write their own opinions, and I just think that's a good idea that a lot of people could be interested in. And so just for the sake of valuing journalism, because it's a dying art a little bit, I really think that it's important to have that. And the podcast, I don't know. It could be fun. We have the equipment here at school, and luckily we have Spirit Live through the school, so there's a platform for that as well. And I just thought it would be fun to have a podcast. I'm not usually on it. Usually I produce, but sometimes I hop on, like today. And so, yeah, just reaching out, branching out, doing as many different things as I can, see what sticks. That was kind of my goal heading into this program anyway. So
I like it. You guys have kind of provided, like you mentioned with the newsletter, a different perspective. A lot of people can see... a lot of people can provide their articles because everybody thinks, they read a sports article, they say, I could do that. I could write a sports article. I want to voice my mind on this topic. And I think it's really cool that you've created an opportunity for these people to write this stuff. And one of the things that's become so much more popular over recent years with the advent of social media and the growth of different social media platforms is these fan-run sites, right? Because the reality is, until you become a beat writer or something, you're still mostly just a fan, but you can still have really good perspectives on different things. And I think it's really cool that Shutter Sports Media is showcasing those perspectives.
For sure. It's just, everyone always has opinions on sports. And a lot of the people after writing their first article for me were like, wow, that was really fun. I didn't know I could even do that. And they're good articles. They have good takes. They know their sports. So it's really fun to see a bunch of different people's different perspectives. And you're right, media is moving more towards what's called an amateur journalist. It's not all these people who are seasoned professionals. Anyone can have opinions, and with social media, anyone can comment on those opinions, and it just opens up sports discussions so much more.
Yeah, no, it provides a fun little spot for fans to discuss it and voice their opinions. Like it's a really cool place to be right now. There's a lot of good things happening. There's some stuff that needs to be controlled a little bit better. There's some misinformation out there, but
For sure.
if you look at it from the other side, like people being able to share so much so freely, and to reach such a wide audience, it's really, really cool.
It sure is. And so transitioning a bit now, we're both attending school at Toronto Metropolitan University for sport media.
Plug.
Yeah, a little bit. Great school, great program. A very well-known program, small, harder to get into. It is. Sorry, Dylan, give me a look. But it is hard. It's harder to get into, as in they only take 80 people a year. And so far, I've been loving it. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I've been loving it. Like, it's really cool to be here and to be experiencing classes and things I want to learn every day, with the exception of some electives that I maybe shouldn't have taken. But every day you're going into a class for something that interests you, right? Like, it's so important, I think, when you go into post-secondary studies to find something that you enjoy, that you really like. And maybe, like, for example, with you with the English major, maybe you would have liked it, but I don't know if you would have liked it to the same extent as you enjoy photography and as you enjoy multimedia sports broadcasting, which is what we're learning here. Even in our first year, like, we're not even through our full first year. We're just in our second semester of our first year. Like, we have learned so much, and every day it's going in to hone your craft, and they provide you with so many opportunities. You're part of varsity photography, Katie. I do a lot of bold broadcasts on Game Day Live and OUA TV and all those things. So they provide you with so many different avenues, and getting to be around people who have common interests, right? Like in high school, you have your friends, but your friends are probably going to go branch out and do different things, right? You're not all interested in the same thing. I know for me, I went to a small French high school. The number of people who were interested in baseball in a small French high school was very, very small, right? There were a lot of people who liked hockey, but it was mostly, soccer fans and stuff like that. Here, you can find fans of everything, right? Like, you'll find people who love the NFL, who love the NBA, who love Major League Soccer, who love whatever, Major League Baseball, doesn't matter. And then you'll find the people who just kind of like everything. Like, I enjoy all sports.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really cool place to be, and I've loved being in this environment.
Yeah, and like you were saying, just like basing this discussion on like the sports industry as a whole and like being able to hone those crafts. Like, I had my goal heading into this program. I knew it wasn't like specifically, because again, I was like looking more at journalism. I was like, okay, this is more like media, but I just want to dip my toe in everything and see like what sticks, what I'm good at. And for the longest time, I was like, okay, I'm like photography, journalism, behind the camera. Don't put me in front of it. Like, I don't even want to touch live broadcasting at all. And we just had our first lab the other day on live sports broadcasting and like creating highlight packs, shows like that. And I got to be assistant director, and I was sitting there and I was like, okay, throw all that out the window. Maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Like, this is really fun. I enjoy it. I felt like I was pretty good at it. And it's just like getting those different opportunities. We get media classes, we get journalism classes, audio production. Like, I wouldn't know how to run this podcast if I hadn't have taken that class.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even something I was considering. And so just learning all these different skills in our desired field, relating it all back to sports, is so useful. And so, like, if I were to give advice to anyone wanting to go into the sports industry, is like, find a program where you can, it doesn't have to be this one, although I do recommend, find a program where you can like test different things, or any aspect of life. Just find something that you're interested in, like you were saying, where you can find like-minded people and just try it all and see what sticks, because you never know what you're going to be good at.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the cool things about this program is that in the first year, it's pretty general media stuff. Like that first semester, there wasn't much that was sport media related. We had one sport media specific class, and everything else was general media studies. But when you get into the sport media classes, like we've got quite a few more in this second semester, even then you're still doing a variety of roles. You mentioned the assistant directing thing. Not something you would have ever thought would be something you wanted to do. Like I in the same class, Katie and I are in the same lab. I was doing switching, and I really enjoyed doing the switching.
Felt
on
like a little DJ out there.
Yeah, an $800,000 camera switcher, and it looked super complicated. Once you got into it, it was a blast. Like I had a really good time doing that. But like you said, like if you asked me a couple months ago, would you ever want to do that? I would say absolutely not. But I had a good time doing it, right? You get to experience all these different things, and I think that it helps you gain an appreciation for them, but it also expands your interests, right? You're not as boxed into the one thing that you think you're going to be doing, because there are so many other possibilities. And you mentioned the audio class that allows you to run this podcast. Like, without this stuff, you can't branch out and adapt yourself. One of the things that's cool about the program is you learn about a variety of different things. So wherever media goes, you can follow, right?
Yep.
Like if podcasts become a thing of the past in 5 years, you're going to have other knowledge that you acquired from this program that you can then apply.
Exactly. Yeah. Transferable skills is a big one.
Yep.
And it's like you can go into any aspect of media with a sport media degree. And I feel like a lot of people take there's 3 RTA classes: there's sport media, new media, media production, and a lot of people take one or the other in hopes to transfer into another one later. Like, it's a lot of the same stuff, and they're all transferable skills, and that's what you're looking for any post-secondary. Especially, like, people say wanting to go into sport media, they're like, take a journalism, take a news studies, media studies, anything like that. There's Brock Sport Management. This is all Canadian, of course. There's tons in the States as well. But like anything like that, they're transferable skills. Anything you're learning that's based on media, stuff you can use in the future, is a good idea.
Yeah, like for me, I came in wanting to be an on-air broadcaster, whether that was doing play-by-play, color, hosting, didn't matter to me. I just wanted to be on the air. But where on the air goes in the next few years, who knows, right? Like we're in an age right now where there's a lot more streaming content, and the way that the viewer experience is changing is something that is ever evolving, and we are not sure where it's headed, right? Like in a couple of years, we could have some new technology that we never thought possible that could change the viewing experience altogether. So I don't know, if I'm able to get into the career path that I want, where that will lead me, I'm not sure. But the fact that I'm here and the fact that I'm learning about all these different things, it allows me to kind of say, okay, if, what I want to do shifts a little bit, I could easily apply my skills in the same way and still be an effective, whether it's broadcaster or behind the scenes member of a production team.
Well, Dylan, no matter where media goes, you'll always have the voice for air. So don't you worry about that. And so just really quick going back, you mentioned I work for Varsity Athletics, you work for Bold Broadcast often, both volunteer positions.
Yep.
But we need those hours to graduate. You need some volunteer practice hours.
I don't actually know how to submit the hours, so I've done, I would say 7 or 8 broadcasts this year, and I have not figured out how to submit
I'll show you
them,
later.
Okay, thank you.
But just talking about the experiential learning that we get at this school outside of classes.
Yeah, like this school provides you with so many opportunities. I actually had the chance to make a TikTok for the RTA Sport Media Instagram and TikTok account, taking you a day in the life. I don't live a very exciting life.
Shout out RTA Sport Media.
Yep.
I think that's what it's called. TMU RTA Sport Media or something on Instagram and TikTok. And if you want, also shameless plug, if you want other day in the life content for sport media, my TikTok, Katie LeBoutillier. But yeah, back to you.
Yeah, so I actually had the chance to make a day in the life TikTok for the official sport media account, which is really cool. I've never made a TikTok before that I've shared publicly. And so,
what are your drafts?
You know what? There have been some trends where it's like, maybe I'll try this out. It's never a good idea to post. So this was the first one that has actually been posted publicly, and it was really cool to kind of do that and show people what a day in the life looks like, what the opportunities are. And one of the things I said in that TikTok was, no place will give you as many opportunities as this, right? You have the chance, as part of the sport media program, we have the chance to, if you wanted to sign up right now, you've been in photography like you've mentioned, if you wanted to sign up and do color commentary for a volleyball game, a basketball game, a hockey game, you could get that spot, right? Like they provide opportunity to everybody who's interested in broadcasting, and you can branch out and do whatever you want in the broadcasting area, right? You can learn from people who have been in the program for a few years, who can show you the ropes in terms of production. You can find an on-air role for yourself and maybe carve out a niche over there, right? Like there's so many different avenues at this school, and I'm speaking mostly in terms of a broadcast because that's what I've been a part of, but there's a lot of other things that happen at TMU that you can sign up for and that you can do, and it's really, really cool from a media perspective to be at this school specifically, which is one of a kind in its content.
For sure, and that goes for there's the Eye Opener, which is our newspaper.
Yep.
You can join that. Spirit Live, which is what we're doing right now. For those of you who listen on Apple Music or Spotify, our podcasts are also available on the student-run Spirit Live website for TMU. So there's just a bunch of different media avenues that anyone can join, and it's all again, those creative practice hours, you don't have to pay to get in, that you don't pay you. It's just experiential. That's a word. Experiential learning. So. Yeah. Again, talking about how people want to get into the sports industry, because I know that's a huge niche online, is people who want to get there, and that's what a lot of my TikToks, a lot of people's TikToks are about, how to get into the sports industry, because it's such a fascinating industry that a lot of people are trying to break into.
Yep.
And anyone who messages me, because for some reason a lot of people do, I say just get involved in your school. TMU, we are very lucky. people ask me how I got my job. It was like I applied through, we have a career boost where they actually do pay you. And there are some photographers that get paid. I didn't get the job. I got volunteer. Worked out because I need to get those hours done anyway.
Yeah.
But I say, like, just apply for anything, email people, volunteer, try any kind of media you can. We're lucky that we get a lot of those opportunities, but I know other schools, like every school has varsity athletics. Most of them have Instagrams at this point. Like, there's so many more media opportunities now than there were. So just, like, volunteer, get out there, because university is a great time to learn, and those skills are going to look good on a resume. You're going to have those skills moving forward. And so if you're in university or heading in, even high school, like, I ran yearbook, I did photography, like, just if there are no opportunities, create them for yourself.
Exactly. 100%. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And the other thing to mention is talk to people at university, because like right now, if I didn't talk to you at all in first semester, then we wouldn't be sitting here recording a podcast. Some of your opportunities will come from the people you meet in university, right? So talk to as many people as you can. You laughed after I made that comment because I didn't talk to anybody for the first 2 or so weeks.
He ignored me in the hall our first
It was unintentional. I'd like the record to reflect that. It was unintentional. I didn't realize that it was Katie, and it clicked afterwards, and I felt awful because she said hi to me in the halls, and I just completely what's
egoed. He went Hollywood on me.
I did, and I felt awful afterwards. But talk to people, branch out, meet new people, because they will be your colleagues, they will be your superiors in the industry. And even right now, we're just first year students, and Katie's got a podcast that she's running on Spirit Live and with her media. With her media channels online. And so I have the opportunity to kind of talk about sports here. And so many other people in first year have had the opportunity to jump on a Shutter Sports Media podcast and talk about sports because you branch out, right? You make those connections, and those connections are so vital for the industry.
Yeah, especially even because we have such a small program, it's a niche program. Even between like all 4 years, each year has about 80 people. Getting to know people in upper years has been such an asset. Like, I haven't gotten any jobs through them yet, but I'm sure in the future they will be running important stuff, being in charge, producing broadcasts, and just getting to know them, or even just getting to know their experience so far. Like, we were talking to some 30 years the other day, and someone just casually mentioned that he was working front office for Jays, like working in their marketing.
Big deal. No big
I was
deal.
like, oh, that's so fascinating. We were like, how'd you get the job? He's like, started in sales, like selling merch. Like, they just have so many inside knowledge and like their own experiences and just sharing their experiences. Yeah. So if you are in a program like that, or even any workplace like that, just talk to the people around you, know their experiences, ask any advice, just be so willing to listen. Like, be a sponge, absorb everything around you, make those connections, get a LinkedIn, make those connections, because it'll all help you in the future.
Absolutely. And from the other side of the token, if you have that experience, share it, please.
Just talk about it. Get on a podcast and talk about it.
Well, no, like I'm saying at TMU, like we have a lot of upper year students who are so open to sharing their experience and their knowledge. And I think that's so vital, right? You want to continue to grow the media industry, to grow the program, and to ensure that people have opportunities, right? And I may not go into the same thing that you go into, Katie, but I can learn from your experience, right? And it's the same thing with the upper year students. Maybe I don't want to become a producer, but I can learn a lot from the producers who have worked with other broadcasters, for example.
Yeah, especially knowing what they want you to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So telling people about your experience, if it's something that they want to do, please be willing to share. Please be open, because I think it's so crucial to help younger people and future generations of content creators and of media personalities and of producers to show them the ropes and get them started.
Yeah, and even like in all of our classes, I'm like picturing our sport media or like our live broadcast production, our teacher, he's like saying like, be professional. It's a small industry. Everyone knows everyone. And it's true. Like, all these connections link you back to someone that you watch on TV.
Are we allowed to mention the name of our professors, or is that frowned upon?
I think it's fine. Ryan Sykes is great.
Oh my God, he's the best. I love Ryan. Ryan's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's preparing us so well for the sports industry that's like that we're coming up on. Yeah, that made sense, I guess. He's just preparing us so well for the industry that we're going to go into. And he said, like, it's a small industry. Everyone knows everyone. And it's true, like, a fourth year that you might talk to knows someone who works for TSN. And, like, just any connection you can have, any good impression that you put out, like, always be doing your best in the sports industry, because an eye will turn towards you at some point. Yeah. And, like, with my photography, like, how I got my jobs, I was posting, it was being shared. One of the coaches randomly for a team that I was working for owned a tournament, and he paid me to come out and take photos. Like, you never know who's watching, who's consuming your content, who's watching your broadcast. And so the more you put yourself out there, the more likely those jobs and opportunities are to come.
Absolutely, and don't mail it in ever. That's one of the things. Like I've had some, when I first started, there were some broadcasts where I'm like, I'm tired, like the team's losing. I'm just kind of here to talk for a little bit, but you can't be doing that because that might be the one game where somebody is watching it and listening to you to figure out whether they want to hire you for something. And with photography, right? Like don't mail it in. Don't just take pictures of whatever. Like ensure that your pictures are high quality photos. Ensure that your broadcasts are high quality broadcasts that everybody will want to listen to, right?
Yep.
Don't make it, for me, in my experience, I work in junior B hockey, and you get a variety of different broadcasters in junior B hockey where there's some people who are trying to break into the industry like myself, and there are some who are past the day where they would be interested in joining the industry, but they're kind of doing it as a hobby.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's so common in junior B hockey is the broadcasters are very one-sided. And there's a place for one-sided broadcasters, right? For homers. I think it adds to the fan experience of those teams. But you have to make sure that everybody watching can enjoy the game. So whether that's from the other team or just a random fan that's tuning in, right? You have to make it enjoyable and you have to give your best every single time. It can be exhausting. It can be tiring. But do your research. If you're on the air, do the research on the teams. It's important to know everything about the teams. And give a good show or the best show you can give every single time you're on the air because you never know who's listening.
Yeah, because you're on Flow Hockey, so anyone, like, if it's an away game, you're honestly probably getting mostly away fans.
Exactly, and that's
watching the broadcast.
That was something that clicked for me probably in my third year with the Kings, where I was like, yeah, it's like away fans that are tuning into this, so I should cater to them a little bit here too. And like, you've got to know. I had somebody once tell me that you should do 60% of your prep on the away team and 40% on the home team, because a lot of the home fans will not be watching; they'll be at the arena. So you have to kind of know the opponent really well so that you can bring things up that are interesting discussion points for the fans at home and so that they can enjoy the broadcast as well. Get excited when they score. Maybe not as excited as you get for your team. If you're working for a team, right? Yeah. Then you get more excited for one team.
For sure.
But don't make it monotonous and depressing when the other team scores, right? There's ways that you can adjust your work in order to make it enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah, and I know from a viewer perspective, my brother plays hockey in New York, so obviously we don't get out to a lot of the games, and we watch on Flow Hockey, and just the broadcasting. It's like he plays in the EHLP, so they're not all like high level broadcasts. He's lucky enough to play for an EHLP team that has an EHL EHL team, like the Adirondack Thunder is like a high level whatever. And so they have a huge stadium broadcast. They use that equipment, but not some of the teams are played in some random barn in Vermont or whatever. And it's just the broadcasting that happens, like, it's never catered to the away audience. It's like I'm watching and I'm like, okay, the camera's not even on the play. Like, you never know. Yeah. And some of these people are just like, sometimes it's like the scratches that are like recording and broadcasting. But you never know who's watching, and usually it is the away fans. So just like keeping your audience in mind for any aspect of the sports industry, whether you're making a post on social media, taking a photo, knowing who you're trying to cater that to is always important to know. Yeah.
I remember a big wake-up call for me was in my first year at Komoka, the Kings were playing in the playoffs against the second-seeded Leamington Flyers. And the Kings had scored, I think, 2 goals in that series. They were having a really hard time scoring. And I was very passionate. It was my first year with the team. I was like, let's do it. I love this team. I'm a fan at the same time that I'm a broadcaster. And maybe that's where I went wrong a little bit. But when I was broadcasting the last game of the playoffs, I had my friend and my broadcast partner with a lot of majors, the baseball team I work for, Noah Smith, and he does some work in the league as well with Strathroy, and he tuned in, and so did my boss of the majors, the media relations man, Matt Hiscox. And they said to me after the game, they're like, Dylan, you sounded depressed at the end of that game. Like, you sounded really upset. And I was like, well, how long did that go on? And they're like the last 10 minutes, you sounded like you were so uninterested in the game. And I listened back to it. I was like, they're right. I did. And at first I was like, no, come on. Like, I wasn't that bad. I thought I did a pretty good job. But no, you've got to make sure that the audience wants to listen to you, because really you're the only link between them and the game. So, or you're the biggest link, maybe not the only link, but you're the biggest link. And if you're sounding uninterested, why should they care, right? Yep. So it's so crucial to cater to your audience, like we've been preaching.
Yep. And so now just moving on to, we have 2 more points. Moving on to goals for the future. What are your goals in the sports industry? Obviously you want to broadcast. Throw some throw some manifestations out there.
The biggest goal for me would be to be a play-by-play broadcaster in baseball or hockey professionally. Like I'd love, like the ultimate goal is NHL, MLB, and I'd love to do other sports. I just don't think that I could do them as well.
Yeah.
Like I feel pretty confident in my ability to broadcast baseball and hockey, whereas other sports like basketball or football I'm less experienced with. But the ultimate goal for me would be to work in the NHL or in the MLB or in MLB, not the MLB, because I know that irks some people. It's not the Major League Baseball.
That
it's just
makes
Major
sense.
League Baseball. That was something I learned about a year ago, and I was like, I never thought of it. But
I never thought
guess,
of it, but it makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of understand where they're coming from. So in MLB or in the NHL, and that's kind of the ultimate goal for me. How about you?
That's actually a good question because I wrote down the question and I really don't know. Yeah, I mean, work in professional sports in any capacity, whether it's beat writing, photography, social media. I, again, kind of have a toe in the water everywhere, and I don't really know exactly where I'm headed. Wherever wants to hire me.
No, exactly. And a lot of where you want to go is dictated by who's going to hire you, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I get hired to be a beat writer, I'm going to try to be the best beat writer I can be,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And that's the mindset you should have. And then my goal for Shutter Sport Media, I don't know. For now, we're still kicking it.
Be the next media empire. Why
I
not?
guess so. Yeah, I mean, continue to grow, obviously, for Shutter Sport Media and continue to post photos, podcast, newsletter. Those are my goals for this year. I was like, hey, I'm starting a podcast. And I was talking to our friend Eli. I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. And he was like, you're not going to have time. Like, not that he was like diminishing me, but he was like, how are you going to have time for that? Like, what's going to happen? And then I did it. And I was like, oh, okay. It's really not that hard. But like, I was like, okay. So like, just, I don't know, taking Shutter Sport Media wherever I feel like I want it to go. And like, again, just providing opportunities for other people is a big goal of mine because I don't know about media empire, but like community voice is a great way to say, like, I just talking about sports. That's my goal. Keep talking about sports, working in sports, and hopefully getting paid for it.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal.
That's
right?
also a goal, is make a living.
It's worth mentioning you're probably not going to get paid for the first few years that you do the job.
Yeah.
Like even for me, and I'm not acting like I get paid a livable wage from Kamoka or from the majors, but it took me a while to get paid, right?
Yep.
Because at first you're going to enter and it's going to be volunteer, or it's going to be an unpaid internship, right? You got to create avenues for yourself to make some money. And,
For sure.
and by honing your craft and becoming the best broadcaster, the best photographer, the best producer, the best camera operator you can be, that will get people to start noticing you and to offer to pay you as well to retain your services, right? Because people are going to want you as long as you continue to try to be the best version of whatever role you are you can be. People are going to want to hire you.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing too about the sport industry is the difference like between there's a lot of freelance work, there's a lot of contract work.
Yeah.
And there are certainly jobs where you can get a long-term contract, make a livable wage. But there's also a ton, like I do a lot of freelance, especially photography, stuff like that. Like media is more freelance, and like tournaments pay me to come in. And like for a lot of that you set your own prices, but then I need to be more like advocating for myself as a photographer. They'll be like, how much do you want to pay? And I'm like, oh my God, but you're letting me take photos. Like, I don't know, like not a lot, but it should be more. I put in like crazy hours of work and get paid like, I calculate in my head, I'm like, that is far less than minimum wage and I should have asked for more. But just being able to advocate for yourself and be like finding those freelance opportunities, like it really depends. Like it's good to have a contract job as well as those freelance opportunities because the industry is so like, it can turn around on a dime.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some like stable contract jobs.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, if you're going into freelance work, the other thing that allows you to do is make those connections, right? We talked about connections earlier. If you're going into work for somebody you didn't previously know, then you're adding them to your connection, your list of connections, right? And maybe they recommend you to somebody else for a job, right? In the case of photography, I would say that's more common in photography than in any other field, really,
sure.
right? Like if you work for that coach who runs the tournament, he has a buddy who says, "Oh, I have a tournament that I'm running.
Yep.
I need a photographer. Who do I go to?" He will say, "Well, go to Katie LeBoutillier," right? Like there's places and people that you meet that allow you to branch out and allow you to have bigger and better opportunities in sports.
And one weird thing too that I've like noticed more being here, like with the PWHL playing out of our university arena, and like you can just apply for a media pass and they'll get you don't get paid. You just get a media pass and you go take your photos, take your phone, make your social media content, whatever. And then if enough people watch that or like those photos, or you catch the eye of someone who works for the team, you can then get a season contract taking photos. And like, again, you're going to have to start with a lot of volunteer on your own time, especially like how I got started going to my brother's games, like just in a random rink, taking photos, posting them online. Eventually, hopefully, the jobs and the money, although it's not about the, like I am so happy to just go take photos and like I'll be at home in my hometown, Ottawa, just like bored and I'm like, okay, I'm going to a rink and taking photos. Yeah. Like it's not all about getting paid, but obviously if I want this to be my career, eventually that has to come in. But
yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, I mentioned the fact that I get paid a little bit to do some of the broadcasting work, but there's a non-zero chance. I would say it's probably a pretty good chance that eventually I'm gonna have to do work volunteering again, right? Like even these bold broadcasts are volunteer work. They're through school, so it doesn't feel as much like volunteering. But like in the future, to get a better opportunity, I may have to volunteer again. And that's just something you have to live with as you try to climb up in the media landscape and find a full-time job that pays you well enough to live and that you really love doing. Because a lot of people get into the sport media industry and media in general because they love to do it. And if you love to do it, that's one thing, but you also have to be able to make money. To get there, though, you know, it's kind of like chicken or the egg. What comes first? Do you love it or do you make money on it first and then you love it? I think you got to love it to get up to where you get paid enough money to live.
And that's what I love about this industry is everyone's just always so excited to be working, so excited to be there. I like, for photography, I'll look at like the broadcast schedule, like, oh, Dylan's broadcasting this game, our friends Julian's on camera, like whoever's around, and I just get so excited to go into work because I love watching the hockey. It's usually hockey that I'm working, any sport. Like I love being there, and that just makes your work better. And so it's just such a passionate industry, and I love being a part of it. And
be positive too, right? Like come in with energy, like an excitement. Doesn't matter if the team you're broadcasting is 3-30 or 50-0, right? Like come in with that same energy and be positive with the people you're working with. If you're a producer, say, let's have a good show, everyone. Like little things to prop people up and to make them feel good, because then coming to the arena, it may be a job, it may be something you have to do, but it doesn't feel like one because you're enjoying what you're doing and the people around you make it a good time as well. And you mentioned, like, I do the same thing. When I see somebody on the sheet that I know, I get so excited because I'm like, this is awesome. Like I get to hang out with them for 6 hours or whatever it ends up being, because you're there 3 hours before to set up, and then you've got the 3-hour broadcast. So whatever it may be, having people who are positive, who are excited, who are happy to be there, it makes a world of a difference.
For sure. And speaking about getting excited, recently me and Dylan have both had pretty exciting weeks in the landscape of U Sports hockey. We just both covered, in our own respect, the Queen's Cup, which is the OUA finals. TMU, our school, was amazing and got into the finals against UQTR.
In men's hockey, worth
men's hockey, yes. OUA men's hockey. Well, Queen's Cup is obviously, like, if they know, but they don't, because no one knows.
U Sports is pretty niche, which is unfortunate because it's good. It's good hockey. It's good basketball. It's good volleyball. It's just pretty niche. So.
It is. But yeah, OUA, so Ontario University Athletic Association, I don't know. Men's hockey, Queen's Cup, which is the finals. It was number 2 UQTR against number 2 TMU in their own respective divisions. And what an electric crowd. Oh. It's, I think, so far the biggest sporting event that I've worked. Yeah. And just like walking in, I got so excited. They had a little reserved for Katie LeBoutillier seat for me where I got to set up my little media station.
It was
first
really
time I've
close to our
that.
broadcast booth.
It was actually right next to Dylan, and I had to wait for them to be done talking to walk to my media deck, which is a little unfortunate, but that's okay. And I got a media pass, and it was just such a great experience. The crowd was so good, and the game went to double overtime. I almost threw up. It was so stressful, but it was so fun and a great experience. Talk about it, Dylan.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was on the French coverage. Now, the French coverage actually did not get aired anywhere, but it was in preparation for something else that we're both working this week, which is the University Cup, which is the national championship for men's hockey in U Sports. So there'll be the top 8 teams in the country will be at the Mattamy Athletic Center this week. I'll have the chance to be doing color commentary on all the French broadcasts with David Brosseau, and I'm very excited about that. That'll be on Radio-Canada on their website, and you're working photography for a lot of the games too.
Yeah, I am. And we're both working the All-Canadian award ceremony breakfast.
Yes, yeah.
7 a.m. on Wednesday morning.
7 a.m. call time Wednesday morning. I have the pleasure and I'm very lucky to be the MC of that awards breakfast, and then you're working photography.
And I get
for
to
the
take
awards
pictures of you
breakfast,
emceeing.
Exactly,
And
everybody
hopefully we
loves
both
pictures
get
of
some
themselves.
breakfast.
Yes, that's the goal. That's
Yeah.
the goal, because we'll be working for the bulk of that, right? So hopefully the breakfast isn't all gone by the
plus
time.
call time.
Yeah, by the time that we're done, hopefully there's still some breakfast left over for people working the event as well.
But yeah, very exciting stuff coming up in our little niche youth sports landscape, and just fun to be working what feels like very professional sports events. Like it's all these people who are in your sports also trying to get to the professional. Like we're all in the same boat. We're trying to get to the league media-wise. They're trying to get to the league player-wise, and it's just an environment where everyone's trying their best all the time, and it's just so exciting. And now we get to see the top 8 teams in Canada play. And I think that just, honestly, when it's better games, elevates my craft. I know, I don't know about you, but I feel like you broadcast better when it's a great game. When you're just so excited about the teams that are playing. It's a great game. It's 2 good teams. And I just feel like that puts everybody at the top of their game, and I'm so excited.
Mentioning the awards breakfast had me scared I lost my suit again. For those who don't know, I forgot my suit in our class earlier before we went to record this, but I do have it in the room, so we're good. But yes, like you were mentioning, they do a really good job of making this a very professional environment for whatever you do, whether it's photography, whether it's broadcasting, whether it's production. Like everything feels so professional here, even though it's not a big media conglomerate like Sportsnet or TSN or those places. It feels almost professional here, and like you mentioned with the big exciting games, I mean, I feel that I'm the best at those games, and I'm sure you're the best in those games because you feel the emotion of the moment. It's totally fair as somebody who covers sports to be a little less motivated for certain things, right? Like if there's a game that's between 2 teams who are really struggling this season, or it's between a team who's really struggling and a team who's probably going to dominate, it's understandable to not be as excited, but that comes back to the same thing that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
You've got to still try to be your best,
sure.
but it's a lot of fun to cover those really exciting big games that allow you to kind of elevate your craft.
And like you were saying, just going back to how professional of an environment it is, like every game I feel like, okay, this is going to be, like I feel like I'm like working professionally. Like I'm getting given hours for it, but I feel like just the processes that we use for broadcast, like the equipment we have is fantastic. Photography, it's like a schedule that would be very similar to what they use in the NHL or any professional sports. Like you're uploading in between every period. It's so like instantaneous, and like even watching our media people do it, like I don't work with social media, but I work in collaboration with them obviously because they use my photos, and just like every aspect of what goes on bold game day is just so realistic and so relatable and transferable to what we're hopefully going to experience professionally.
Absolutely. They have the best equipment here at TMU, and everything feels like it's a professional.
We're just plugging. Come to TMU for Sport Media.
If you want a TMU promo, this is it right here. Like, get them on the Shutter Sports Media podcast, get them clipping it, put it online, because this has been a great promo, I think, for TMU.
Because it's a great program. If you want to go into the sports industry, I could not recommend it more. Yeah,
no, it's awesome. I love being here, and like it provides you with so many great opportunities. We have an opportunity for internships as well as we progress in our schooling, and we've got what's it called? The final thing you do, the
practicum.
Practicum. Thank you. I couldn't figure out the word, but you do your practicum. You can put on a big event. Like this year, there was a big event, the UConn versus TMU women's basketball game that was happening at the Mattamy Athletic Center.
There was the sport versus
really
media
cool.
basketball.
Sport
just a ton of huge
basketball,
student-run projects that are great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that experience, kind of putting a show together yourself and putting things and setting things up. Like I know there was a lot of behind the scenes media work done for that UConn versus TMU game, kind of previewing it because it was the comeback of Aaliyah Edwards to Toronto, right? Like it was just a really cool space to be in, a really cool environment, and like that's something that's so unique to TMU, and it's part of what makes it so special.
For sure. Just walking past anyone in the halls and like, oh, they work for TSN. Oh, they have an internship with the Blue Jays. Like, it's just you're surrounded by so many talented people, and it just makes you better. Yeah,
absolutely it does. It's so cool to see them doing their thing, because then you think, okay, I could do that too, right?
Yeah.
Like you see people who are in the same program as you just a few years down the line, and they're doing all these cool things. You're like, that could be me in a couple of years, and that's really awesome to see.
One thing I struggle with in the sports industry, because it's not all like doing great and having a great time, is I compare myself to other people.
Yep.
Just continuously.
So do I. Yeah.
And even like within our program, I'm looking at fourth years who have been doing this for 4 years, and they have an internship with TSN, not to diminish. Like, it's the small, not like sometimes it's the smallest job. They do one thing, and I'm like, why am I not working for TSN yet? I'm like, because you're 18 and you just got here. Like, calm down.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing like, even when I was saying earlier, like getting a new camera, like I look at other people's photos and I'm like, God, my photos are not as good. I need a new camera. Like, or just calm down for a minute. Like,
well, the interesting thing is like there's things like that where it's like, yeah, you have to wait your turn. You're still very young, obviously. You've got lots of time to make things work. But one thing that comparing yourself to other people also allows you to do is kind of interpret their styles and adapt them to yours to make it your own, right? Like you may see somebody's editing style for a photo and be like, I like the way they did that. Like I might start doing that. Or you might reach out to them and say, hey, how did you edit this picture? Like I want to start editing in that same way. And for me, like if I listen to a broadcast and I hear maybe some terms that I really like, I could start incorporating those or somebody's flow in their style. I hear it and I'm like, I really like that. Maybe I should try to incorporate that as well. There's so many different things that you can do while comparing yourself positively to other people and say, okay, I could do this. I could bring this in, and it all in hopes of making yourself and the viewer experience better.
Yeah, it's definitely a strength and a weakness, but I feel like the way I look at it most of the time is a weakness. I'm like,
and I think that's human nature, right?
Oh,
like,
for sure.
I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, but that is one thing in this industry. It's because it's so competitive, and there's, again, like so many people just doing their own thing in their own way. Like there's just nonstop comparison with other people. And because a lot of jobs are similar, and like we have a few, because it's a very niche industry, there are some people who have paved a path. It's hard to like not just be the exact same as them trying to get to where they are. And then if you do that, people compare you like, oh, you're just trying to be like Jesse Pollock, you're just trying to do this, and like in different ways. And like I've heard people say that, like, oh, he's just trying to do that, he's just trying to be like that person, she's just copying this. And like it's because we compare ourselves so much, and it's such a niche industry. Like there's only so many, we see something work and we're like, oh, okay, gotta do that then.
Yeah.
But you don't. Just be your own person and pave your own path, because it's such a developing industry and it's always changing. Make room for yourself.
One of the most common criticisms for people online, and there are a lot of criticisms of people online, but one of the most common things is they want fresh perspectives, right? They don't want the same thing. And by carving out something that you do, whether that's molding some skills together, some assets from different people, molding all that together to form your own style, whether that's what you decide to do or whether you just create something completely different and make it your own thing and decide, and people like that. Like there's so many different avenues because people are looking for different ways to consume content now and different voices to help them consume that content. It provides you with a lot of unique opportunities in the media industry.
Anything else you want to say about the media industry?
I hope to be a big part of it one day. That's my goal. That's my goal. But
no, the sports media industry is incredible, and I think everyone here is heading in the right direction. And even if you're just listening to this podcast, you're heading in the right direction. You've got our advice.
Are you just saying that because it's your podcast, or are you saying it because we were informative?
I think we were informative, and it means they've dipped their toe into a form of media, and they can take inspiration. They can throw out everything we've just said and go a completely different way. Either way, you're expanding your knowledge. Come to TMU.
The two biggest takeaways from this podcast are knowledge is power and come to TMU because the sport media program is really cool.
And you'll gain all that knowledge and get all that power.
There you go.
Yeah, you know what, let's leave it with one piece of advice. If you had one takeaway for the listeners today, I would say, I think, after my mindset coming into university and it being proven true because I'm just that smart, try everything. Like, that's what I was saying. Try everything and be a sponge.
Yeah.
That's kind of two things. But like, try everything because you never know what's going to stick. I was like, I'm throwing all these ideas on a wall and seeing what sticks and what I want to do in the future, because even though I might look like I have it figured, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see whatever comes my way. And the more you try different things, the more opportunities you get. And then be a sponge because you're constantly going to be given feedback. You're going to see other people. You can take their ideas, their feedback, and like if you're just talking to other people, absorb anything that they tell you. And those are my two biggest takeaways.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'll expand on that and say, like, always be putting on your best show, right?
Yep.
And meet new people, like make connections, meet people that one day might hire you, one day might be your colleagues, right? Be kind to everyone, and keep trying to do your best, whether it's in photography, whether it's in broadcasting, production, whatever you want to do. Every time, try to find different ways to make it better. That's my little piece of advice.
That's inspirational.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Shutter Sports Podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you find your podcast, and don't be shy to join the discussion on any platform at Shutter Sports Media. Until next time, I'm Katie LeBoutillier, joined by
Dylan Baker.
and this has been the Shutter Sports Podcast.